Our next guest has been able to talk to Jack, or rather to the Square team, about their payments tribulations navigating the infrastructure bill in Washington, D.C. So maybe our Kristin Smith, Executive Director of the Blockchain Association, will be able to weigh in. So hello there, Kristin. Thanks for joining us. I know you haven't had a chance to speak to Jack specifically, but you've had a chance to speak to the Square team during the infrastructure bill battle. Jack is CEO of Square, so he'll likely be moving full time to this. Can you give us some idea of their concerns, what's going on through their minds?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I think, both Jack and at least the government relations team at Square in Washington, D.C. Is incredibly passionate about Bitcoin in particular, also the Lightning Network. And they want to make sure that there's good public policy in Washington in order for this to continue to be something that can be utilized and adopted on a larger scale. I think personally that his switch and his announcement yesterday indicates that Jack has an all-in mentality towards crypto, obviously with the work going on in Square, but also his discussion around decentralization. And, Twitter is very much a Web 2.0 company, and there is some innovation happening around the edges there. But, I think as I'm also in Miami this week, as we look and see all of the creators that are benefiting from NFTs and everything happening in the metaverse, there's so much happening with the next generation internet that for innovators, this is the space that you want to be in. You want to be building towards decentralization and contributing to that economy, because that's where the action is, that's where the excitement is, that's where the innovation is, and that's where we're going to see our economic growth derive from going forward.
And what do you see Jack Dorsey doing to contribute to crypto in the future of Web 3.0?
Yeah, I wish I knew what was going on in his head, because I think that would mean that I wouldn't be working in policy. I would probably be retired on an island by now. But I think that public policy is a good portion of that. Jack was an incredibly strong and effective ally during the infrastructure debate in August. He, took his thoughts and ideas to Twitter. He really helped get the word out about what was happening in Washington and took a personal interest in that. So, that's certainly a piece of this. But yeah, I think what is so wonderful about crypto networks is that, you can build so many different things on top of them, and it's really limited to the human imagination. And Jack clearly has, a very expansive imagination when it comes to thinking about the world and thinking about new ways to share information and share value.
So, Kristin, the Blockchain Association raised about $4 million to lobby Congress here. Is it to sway the Brad Shermans of the world, or are you trying to replace them?
Well, what we do at the Blockchain Association is we work towards trying to persuade members of Congress. And the first step in that is to reduce the knowledge gap for those policymakers that are focused on other issue areas. It really is a challenge for them to understand all of the pieces, to actually see the potential of where where we're going as an industry. And so, we are working, we've recently beefed up our policy team. We brought in Jake Chervinsky, who many in the community know, to lead our policy effort. We also brought in a new head of government relations. So we're really trying to expand our capabilities and be able to reach more policymakers at their level, because everybody's at a different space in their journey. And so we want to make sure that we're giving them the right information they need at the right time. And over time, it's a lot of work. It's not a lot of glamorous work. It's a lot of conversations over and over and over again. But it's the piece that needs to be done in order for us to move the ball forward. But no, we're not involved as an association directly in political activity, but there's a lot of people in crypto Twitter that I think would love to see Brad Sherman unseated.
Well, and to that effect, though, what are you doing to maybe change the minds of those who are openly hostile to crypto. Are you doing anything at all, or are you just giving up there and just saying, all right, well, see you in the primary?
We're certainly not giving up there, right? I mean, part of what we do is, we try to take those that are naturally crypto curious and cultivate them into champions by giving them the information, making the political case, helping them have the arguments that they need. And on the flip side, we're trying to get in and convince our critics to change their position. Now, I think Brad Sherman is an extreme case. He's clearly a lost cause. But there are a lot of members of Congress that just have fundamental misunderstandings of what crypto is. Like, they think that Bitcoin transactions are completely anonymous, which isn't true, right? Once they learn that there are firms like Chainalysis and Elliptic and TRM Labs, and that you can go through and track and trace, and that law enforcement has tools, they become more open to it. But if no one is going in and telling them this information, they don't necessarily know it. And so a lot of it is just very basic education. But then the other piece is coming up with the good ideas of how we can regulate smarter and better so that we have good consumer protection, we have market integrity, but we also have clear rules of the road so that the industry knows what to do, knows where they're allowed to build, and there's a path forward for the innovation to happen.
Kristin, there's been so much talk about, the infrastructure bill and stablecoin regulations. Is there anything on your radar for 2022, sort of like big regulatory alarm bells that the general public might not be aware of that you guys are focusing on, like things to watch out for, things to make sure it doesn't happen in Washington?
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, one of the larger ones that you mentioned is now that the infrastructure bill has been signed into law, the next step is there will be a rulemaking. And we are working with Treasury and IRS to try to keep that as narrowly tailored as possible and focus on centralized exchanges. So that's going to be a priority for us. Gary Gensler at the SEC has obviously expressed a tremendous amount of interest in this space. I think there are some ways that he could propose some changes to regulation that would make it easier for companies to register. But that has to be done in a very precise way. And so watching and continuing to work with the SEC, I think, is going to be important. The stablecoin front, stablecoins have gotten a lot of attention lately, but I'm not convinced that we're going to see any quick action. A lot of what the President's Working Group report did was ask Congress for more authority. And, we're heading into an election here in Washington. There are some must-pass bills like the Continuing Resolution, the National Defense Authorization Act. But outside of that, I don't think we're going to see a lot of moving legislative activity. So I think a lot of it is going to be working with regulators, but really continuing to do that basic education that's needed so that policymakers can actually make informed decisions going forward.
Mm-hmm. Finally, Kristin, Saule Omarova, who was nominated by President Joe Biden to become the next Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, head the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. Do you see that? I'd like you to weigh in on that, because she has said some negative things on cryptocurrencies, and do you see her nomination going through?
I don't see her nomination going forward, which actually is of great comfort to me. I don't think she would have been good for crypto. I think she could have potentially undone some of the good work that we saw, in the previous administration on this front. And so I think there's somewhere between 3 and 5 Democrats who have expressed reservations. It wouldn't surprise me if we see the White House maybe pull that nomination, maybe put a new name forward. But I don't see her moving forward. I think, it's interesting to me when I was home over Thanksgiving, my brother and my parents were asking about Omarova. And that's something that has hit mainstream news. I think it's something, that people don't normally go around asking about, bank regulators. But I think when your everyday person is out there sort of being like, hey, this seems a little bit extreme to me, I don't think that's somebody that's going to make it through the floor of the United States Senate. So I don't expect that to go through.
Mm-hmm.
Nonetheless, wouldn't she have been great for crypto, though? Because basically, if she was trying to destroy the banking industry and wreck the currency, I mean, wouldn't that be fantastic for crypto?
Why are you guys think we're quite there yet.
Promoting it?
No, I think she might have also tried to take out crypto in that as well. But no, listen, I think the banking system still has a role to play. I think there's a lot of lending in a traditional way is still going to have a major role to play in our economy going forward, and I don't think we're ready to see banking as we know it end today. So
maybe Kristin's just aligned with the banks on this one. All right.
I'm secretly a mole. That's the plan.